Welcome to the Samueletini Show, where business, innovation, and sustainability converge to drive progress. Are you ready to uncover solutions shaping our future? Let's dive in. Welcome to a new episode. And today we are going to meet a woman leader, somebody that is in a leading startup, fostering, the uptake of EV mobility, again in Kenya, with being the head of marketing and communication at Basigo. I'm very pleased to have today here Dorcus Wanjiru. Dorcas, it's a pleasure to have you today here.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.
And Dorcas, it's so wonderful, especially for me in Kenya, to discuss with leaders like you that are fostering EV and really the transformation, what we call the leapfrogging of Africa towards greener technology. But before that, in few words, who is Dorcas? How you have, joined? What is your background and your story?
Okay. So thank you for having me. Again, as you just introduced me, I'm the head of marketing and communication here at Basigo. My background is quite interesting. I am a trained communication professional. So I went to school and studied communication and PR. So majored in public relations and marketing. However, I landed my first job in a commercial department. So did that for about 2 years. And really, so I'd see how tenders were done. I'd see how the business was run. And this company was WPP. So 2 years later, I went back. I often say that I went back to my first love. So went back to PR at Hill & Knowlton Strategies, which is a PR agency, still part of WPP. I did that for a few years, went to Weber Shandwick as a senior manager client experience for East Africa. And there I worked with MasterCard. But at the point where I was working with Hill & Knowlton, Basigo was one of my clients. So when they advertised for the role of head of marketing and communication, I felt like it was going back to one of my first loves. So I applied for the role, and that's how I ended up here. I've been with Basigo for a year and some change, so a year and a few months, a year and I think 2 months now, and it has been quite the journey. So going into sustainability, well, my background is PR and marketing. Over time, I became curious. I was working with some of the clients who were really, and I saw them overhaul their businesses to include sustainability. So I got curious because one of these clients was Kenya Wines Agency Limited, and I could see the lengths they were going to ensure that their business was sustainable. So, for example, I found them, incorporating strategies to use less water, and they moved to a new location in Tatu City here in Kenya. Yeah. I saw them build buildings with sustainability in mind. So that really piqued my interest. And it's something that I do. Whenever I'm curious about something, I go back to school to learn about it. So I went to, I took a program with the Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership. And really that is when my world opened. So it gave me a global perspective on how businesses really drive meaningful change. So it's not fluff. It's overhauling your business to ensure that you impact generations, not only today, but tomorrow. And that your business is here today and tomorrow. And I think that really changed how I approach my role even today. So given that now, climate change, sustainability, it's really one of the defining issues of our time. So for me in my role, with my in communication, I get to combine two things. The urge to ensure that our business and our planet is here today and tomorrow, and what I love doing, which is telling stories. So I help people understand choices, what we do as a business, our impact, what we are doing to ensure that we are not being selfish. We are taking care of our environment, even as we do business. So that is what inspired me to join this.
Fantastic. And it's such an inspirational journey and and you can feel the passion that is coming through your work because it's not just a job, it's a passion. And for the people that are listening to
it is
all over the planet, because we have listeners all over the world. So can you give us a bit, what is Basigo? What is the mission of the company and the business?
So Basigo's vision is to create the future of clean electric public transport in Africa. Really, it's that simple. That is what we do. That is why we exist. That's why we are in this market. That's why we are in Africa. Given that in most countries, Kenya included, transport is really a major contributor to urban pollution. and carbon emission. And we like saying, during COVID, when transport and buses were grounded, some of us could see Mount Kenya from Nairobi. The air was so clear. And you could walk on the streets of Nairobi and not be affected by the pollution, and the air, and our streets were clean and our air was clean. So because 60% of the number could be higher of the people who live in the cities use public transport to get around, there was a real chance to do something about that sector of our cities. So ensure that people can still move around, but ensure that even as they are moving around, the air remains clean and the cities remain livable. So, and that is how Basigo came into place. So in 2022, Basigo was founded, and 2 buses were brought into Nairobi. So why we exist is we introduced electric buses that are affordable to operate to operators and reliable for them, so that it makes business sense for them. So that we are addressing, when you think about the issue of sustainability, in multiple fronts. So we are ensuring that for operators, they can still make a living because it's a business for them. I mean, if you live in Kenya, you'd understand that this is a business for operators. But also, we are reducing emissions and ensuring that we have a livable city that, in the next 5 years, all of us are just not getting out of Nairobi because we can't live here because of pollution.
Yeah.
So that is why Basigo exists, and those are the multiple fronts that we cover in the model and in the business that we do.
Fantastic. And then, so you focus only on buses, and I want to ask this question because it's really important. We know that the work for electric is not easy. The discussion. So, what are the barriers, that you have seen, in overcoming, the resistance from people to get away from the traditional way, the diesel and others, and to embrace a bit the electric way and the electric mobility.
Yeah. And no, we are not only doing buses. Now we are doing vans as well, which is quite something that is exciting to me and very close to my heart, because now electric mobility is now beyond the city. We are saying that even in the rural areas, in the intercity operations, they get to experience e-mobility and they get to experience the benefits of e-mobility. So we recently moved to a city called Nyahururu, my hometown, in Nyahururu. And we have partnered with a circle called 4NTE, and they're currently operating, and we have a pilot with 4NTE operating van there. So the same vans they have, the diesel vans they have, so we have an electric equivalent for them. And so far, about 2 months in, they have really enjoyed the experience, and we are looking now to scale with that product as well. But back to your question, even before I go to the barriers, we've had significant milestones, barriers notwithstanding. So, for example, a few months ago, we hit and we clocked 100 buses on the road in both Kenya and Rwanda. So combined for this market,
fantastic.
100 electric buses on the road, and they're being operated by local bus companies. So for a company that started 3 years ago, it is a statement that this, it works, and that electric buses actually work in Africa. That is the message that we are sending. Electric buses are working in Africa, and operators are embracing electric buses in Africa. So it's just not a pilot. So we are not here to see, does this work or does it not work? It is already working. 100 buses on the road means that it's already working, and operators are ready to take this on. And the fact that we have, in Kenya, for example, we have more than 500 reservations, people waiting for buses, for us to deploy buses, it shows that the model is working. Rwanda as well, we have more than 300. So we are close to 1,000 reservations in both of these countries. It means that this is working. So going back to the barriers, and it's quite interesting because when we came into this area, you can tell that there's a lot of not knowing that people don't understand. But also, just if we go back to the issue of cost, because this is the language that operators understand.
Exactly.
When you go to for them, it's a business. They want to understand, how does this make business sense to me? And the truth of the matter is, an electric bus is close to 3 times more expensive than a diesel bus. So if we are talking cost, that already disqualifies the electric bus. But this is what we did. So when we realized that, and when you study your customer and you understand some of these barriers, Then we introduce something we call the pay-as-you-drive system. So what this allows us to do is to just remove the high upfront cost barrier for our operators. So how this works is an operator will put on a deposit for the bus, and then every day they drive, for every kilometer that they drive, they pay a per kilometer fee. And this per kilometer fee takes care of their charging and their service. So this takes away the headache of charging the bus, of servicing the bus, because we take care of them that way. And also we ensure that the deposit that they place is lower than what they would for a diesel bus. So this becomes now a very attractive business model for them, because it has already taken away some of their headache. So coupled with the fact that we provide after-sales service, so they can come and bring their buses and we'll service it for them, it has created a practical system that works for our market, rather than just bringing any other model to try and deploy it here. So we are meeting the need, but also ensuring that electric buses are more competitive than diesel buses in this market.
Fantastic. And, because that is exactly the thing of many of these innovation. I really like what you said, because many innovation, especially coming from abroad, they are nice to see projects, something that we trial. So I really like your approach is not just, but is an hands-on and practical approach. Because for a matatu driver, if you can tell me the story, for a matatu operator that comes to you and say, Dorcas, does it make sense for me to go from the traditional, let's say, Toyota diesel to an electric? Which is the savings and that you have maybe witnessed with the 100 plus vehicles that you have already on the road?
First of all, we cannot deny that diesel prices are skyrocketing every single day. And that's just our reality. On the other side, Kenya especially, and I think East Africa region, but Kenya specifically, we have more than 90% of our electricity coming from renewable sources, our energy coming from renewable sources. So that's really the potential right there, that we have energy being generated from renewable sources, but also, from my point of view, we're not at a point where Kenya is a fully 24-hour economy yet. So you'll find that at around 11 p.m., even in the city, businesses will close. So the question is, where is all this energy that's being produced going to? So that's where companies like ours come into play, because what we do is we charge our buses during the night. So then that all this, the renewable energy is not, so for the government, the renewable energy is not going to waste. And we're ensuring that, we are paying our dues for that. But now for operators, they get a bus that they can fully use during the day, and then at night, we are charging and we are servicing it. So when you think about the story of renewable energy and ensuring that does not go to waste, that's a real, it's a real huge saving for the government, and get to use this resource that's there at night.
Fantastic. No, and it's important. So maybe can you share one or two stories, because I'm curious to know that maybe they are dear to your heart within the work that you have done at Basigo, that really shows, also the impact that you have achieved in Kenya and Rwanda.
I think for me, the impact is twofold. One is when you think about an operator like Omasako that now has the largest fleet of electric buses, and one of their routes that goes into the CBD is an all-electric route. It tells me that operators get it, that beyond the business savings, operators now get it, and they are willing to run with it. Or when you think about a country like Rwanda, where we recently partnered with the government to run an all-electric route from, coming into the city as well. That for me tells me that the government can also see, and they can see the benefits of having an electric route, or having an electric bus running in some of these routes. But really, when you speak to our passengers who say that they can hear themselves think, whenever they're in our buses, they can hear themselves think. Or when you go to Nairobi city, for example, in our CBD, where the buses line up, and you can tell that people, if an electric bus is behind a diesel bus, because that's what they do, the lines, quote unquote, So if an electric bus is behind a diesel bus, you'll find people sort of hesitating. They do not want to get into the diesel bus, waiting for the electric bus's turn so that they can board that electric bus. That, for me, when I see those operators getting it and operators having demand for these buses and passengers literally waiting, queuing for that electric bus, that for me is what warms my heart. It tells me that people get it, and this is no longer just a model that was invented elsewhere. This is a model that works for us, and people love and understand why we are doing what we are doing.
And that is wonderful because it can show also the adoption. Because, of course, if businesses, they do a full route with the electric and then also long distance now in Nyahururu and also Rwanda, it means that it's not just a nice to have or, something that for showcase, but has real business sense. And also consumers are appreciating that. I really like that part. People queuing, that they wait, the other goes, and then they go into the electric. And on that, I want to ask: are you going also to expand manufacturing in Kenya, or how is the model for the buses and the van on that?
Okay, so in Kenya, we do assembly. So we are assembling the buses here locally, in partnership with Kenya vehicle manufacturers in Thika. So what is quite exciting is recently, about just a few weeks ago, actually, we launched the assembly of a bus, the King Long bus. So this is a bus designed by King Long, one of the world's largest OEM, and we will be assembling their electric buses here in Kenya. So these buses are efficient, they're reliable, they are modern, quite modern. I'm sure our passengers and our operators will really love them. But most importantly, that this is the bus that allows us to scale, because when you think about the assembly, how it is assembled, it is easier to assemble. It is, more efficient to assemble. It's just quick, and it's a bus that we can assemble quicker when you think about our past OEMs. So in Kenya, when you think about assembly, it is quite an exciting stage to be at as a company, because now we get to assemble buses quicker. And this, we were just talking the other day, that this is the bus that allows us to get to more than even 20 buses a month in terms of assembly. When you think about the 500 orders that we have, it means that there's the need to ramp up our assembly. And this is the bus that allows us to do that. So yes, in Kenya, we are ramping up our assembly, and we are very excited to ramp up that assembly with now this new bus designed by King Long.
That is good, because that is also the importance for every startup, the scale, going to scale and move. And I'm sure this is a very good step also to create a local assembly and also the local skills, to also maintain and work, and also bringing the youth towards this the so-called green jobs, green transformation, and the agenda that then we discuss.
Absolutely. It's important for me to mention actually that with the assembly, the line we started the line in 2024, so that was last year, and our aim is to create around 300 jobs, green jobs, really, when you think about it. So the line is currently employing tens of workers, and because our when you think about the orders that we have, it ensures that we keep more people in jobs. So we are seeing that, since also this is a new industry and there's a lot of transfer of skills with our OEMs, so we are able to transfer skills, from our engineers, from our partner engineers to our local engineers. So when you think about the impact 10 years to come, people will have knowledge about how to assemble electric buses because we took the leap of faith and just, got on with it. So it is an exciting chapter for local assembly in Kenya.
And it's such an important part of the transformation, not just an Africa that imports traditionally the second hand from Japan or UAE or other, but now that produce, assemble, and then, slowly, it will be able to create the value chain and the ecosystem and then support the industrial transformation. As a startup, as a startup in Kenya, in an emerging, as I call the future markets, the markets that are really growing and at the forefront of innovation also globally. Which are the challenges that sometimes you have experienced and how you have addressed them, especially at the Basigo?
Okay. So I think one of the challenges that we have is financing. I mean, our type of business is capital intensive, and the local funding systems are, they're still maturing for the kind of funding that we have. So that is, if you ask any green tech kind of company, they will tell you that the way capital is we need a lot of capital to keep our business going. The other one is just policy uncertainty, because this kind of industry is really still maturing. So you'll find that regulations and innovation don't go hand to hand. Regulation will often lag behind. So how we address this is really you build global partnerships with financing partners. When you think about the DFIs, we've had some of our partners being Africa 50 that led our recent Series A funding. We've had both debt and equity from the likes of DFC. We've had a few grants also running. So it's just ensuring that we build these global partnerships, keeping our word and ensuring that, we are doing what we said we would do. But also locally, it's to keep engaging policymakers to ensure that they're creating an enabling framework for e-mobility. And this means that sometimes we have to, to share information so that policymakers understand what really is happening in this market. They understand the nuances. So we do a lot of information sharing so that we ensure that they really do understand the challenges that we're facing and what help we need. But also ensuring that we are part of bodies such as the Electric Mobility Association of Kenya. That is a body that deals with lobbying, dealing with the government. So when you think about being in a body like that would deal with policymakers, then it also ensures that you're covered and your voice is still heard and can be expressed through an association such as that one.
And that is important, funding. We have discussed a lot in the podcast about that, because also patient funding that goes is an issue, because we have also a lot of capital expenditure, assembly and work, and the framework for e-mobility. I'm sure also to foster maybe tax breaks for people in e-mobility, and also fostering the environment for the skills that are required for the workforce to tackle this job. And I think you are doing a wonderful, let's say, learning by doing with the engineers and the people at your assembly lines working hand in hand with the foreign expats.
Yeah.
And, this is important. Which are the next steps that you want? Because you mentioned now you have secured more funding, you want to expand and other. So which are the next steps for Basigo? Where do you want to go? Do you want to just to stay around East Africa? You want to expand all over? So which are the objective of the company, especially fostering this urban mobility in our areas?
Actually, I like to say we are always in fundraising mode, because our vision and where we see the company going, we do need to get there. But for us, the next step is to deploy 1,000 buses in 3 years. We want to expand our charging infrastructure. We're already doing that in both Kenya and Rwanda. But also we want to strengthen our local assembly and service capabilities. So it's really more about, let's scale buses, infrastructure, assembly. When you think about that, we're already actually doing that. So it's more of ramping it up. More than 100 buses on the road. We have chargers. Currently, we are in the process of building 2 more charging depots by the end of the year in Kenya. And we've identified other sites and partner sites to deploy chargers to ensure that, operators can operate their buses without any hiccups, any charging hiccups. When you think about service, and I think this is important for me to mention, we recently partnered and CATL appointed us as a service partner for Sub-Saharan Africa, which is huge because we now get to service CATL batteries in the region. And what this means for the business is that our buses, which are powered by CATL batteries, now get to be more on the road. So when you think about the bus uptime, which is an important metric for us, it means because we have these capabilities, because our service engineers have been trained by CATL, it means that our buses get to be on the road for longer because we have local expertise to repair these buses. So for us, the next steps is scale, more buses on the road, a bigger charging infrastructure and a bigger charging network being deployed between the two countries, and to ensure that our buses are on the road for longer. So, a ramped up service capability.
And on that, I want to ask this part of the ecosystem. I don't know if you can, because those are industrial policy, but I want to ask this because charging infrastructure is also part of the ecosystem, not creating the ecosystem. I know there are different companies working, different startups working in the space. So, are you doing also collaboration to foster, to have also cross-pollination, working together to ensure maybe compatibility of the charger, or creating a common standard for Kenya to avoid, the many pitfalls that sometimes happen when you develop different standards and others?
I think it's a good point you raise, but through EMAC, so this is some of the things that the Electromobility Association of Kenya, EMAC, handles. As Basigo, our chargers we maintain chargers, and we bring chargers and deploy chargers that are universally accepted. So chargers with high quality, but also we ensure that, and this is something we're working with EPRA in Kenya and KPLC, is to ensure that we can work around a framework and a policy that allows us to use our chargers for public charging. So we still need a license from EPRA, and this is something that EPRA is working on. We are collaboratingly working with EPRA on, but that's the goal, that's the future, that we are ensuring that any person who has an electric car can drive into one of our charging stations and charge their car. So it's something that's currently in progress, and EPRA is really on it, and they're very keen on it. So we are to sit and wait and see how that goes.
Because that will foster a lot, instead of having a closed ecosystem, then you have and also deploy to how you say, remove that anxiety where I charge. So
exactly.
if you have and then also the uptake of EVs and others, and also more points of charge, and of course deploy the mobility. So if you have to look forward, I mean, you mentioned a bit the 1,000 buses, but let's just jump in 10 years. How do you see the sustainable transport solution over the next decade in Kenya? How, and maybe also our region? Would you see a significant difference? Where do you see this sector going?
If our reservations and our inquiries are anything to go by, over the next decade, I do see electric buses becoming the backbone of urban transport. So these are going to be the norm, not really the exception. And we can already see that along many routes here in Nairobi. But I think in the next decade, I do expect we'll have more buses on the road. It's also something that we are seeing, the integration with digital platforms. So, the cashless systems, that is something that I see that, most passengers will prefer to have digital platforms to pay their fare by, to pay their fare through a digital platform. But when you think about the whole sustainable transport industry, this is really going to be the norm, not an exception.
Fantastic. So we will say goodbye and bid farewell to the pollution and and also from being, let's say, second hands. Everybody here, I think it is my experience, I'm sure your experience as well, we all drive second hand cars, maybe foreign owned, maybe 8-10 years old, so they are less efficient. So now the EV transformation can also leapfrog to us to have better efficiency, greener, and also less pollution, and also something assembled in our country rather than brought from abroad.
And so the shift won't happen overnight, but I'm sure the momentum is clearly building. Our numbers, can tell us that.
And then as a last one, as a practitioner, in the sustainability communication and also the startup world, I mean, and this is the sector you are in is the one that bad, and then a lot of bringing excitement. So which messages and also which advice you want to give to the audience, maybe also especially young people that they want to go into this field of maybe sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship?
I think for me, my key message is sustainability is not a buzzword. It is not a nice to have. It is about us designing solutions that improves people's lives. When you think about sustainability, it's designing solutions that also improve the future and protect the future while taking care of the present. For me, and what I have seen in Basigo is a good example, is that innovation is most powerful when it's practical and inclusive and tailored to the realities of the markets that you're working in. I believe that Africa has a real chance to lead in the sustainability and in the climate change conversation. We have a unique chance to lead the world, but we have to create models that are tailored to our realities and that solve our problems in the most efficient way possible.
And that is fantastic. Thank you so much, Dorcas. I mean, I cannot agree more than that, because that is exactly also we have discussed with others and people like you, that you are really at the forefront of this transformation. We have discussed for many years leapfrogging. Now the leapfrogging is happening. So I'm very happy. Dorcas, has been such an honor and pleasure having you on the show, and I'm really looking forward to more success.
Thank you so much. It has been.
So not 1,000 buses.
Thank you so much.
We want 10,000 in 3 years. 10,000 buses.
And we better get to work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dorcas.
Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.